to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It was a great time for my audio to start going on the fritz there.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
sure we sounded beautiful.
Well, I'm sure there's probably not a lot of people going to rate us on that, I hope. Obviously, the approval of the annual town meeting warrant would be something that I'm sure Greg would like to be here for.
Yeah.
Are the personnel committee appointments and wage authorizations pretty perfunctory?
Yep.
And do we have that stuff here, or?
It's actually right there in the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Want me to read it for you, Dylan?
Yeah, I'm just looking for it, but you can go ahead and read it.
Okay, Barre Police Department Supervisor is Chief Carbone. The employee name is Anthony G. Simo. I think that is a Simo?
Simu.
Simu, okay. Full-time police officer, and he would be on step number 1 at an hourly rate of 20.99, hours per week 40, and that is signed by the chief and also by Jessica. So we can probably do them independently.
So I'm willing to entertain a motion.
I'll so move. You're gonna have to second.
Yeah, I will second that. Then we will, if there isn't any further discussion, Dr. Marshall,
No, I think we're
I'll
good.
call for a vote.
Yes?
Yeah, yes, Clark.
Okay, looks like a vote. Second individual that is a wage authorization from the town of Barre, again, the Barre Police Department, Supervisor Chief Carbone, the employee named Lisa C. Westling, full-time police officer, effective 6/2/21, first step, 20.99 cents per hour, and 40 hours per week, authorized again by Chief Carbone and by Jessica Sizer.
Excellent. So I'd entertain a motion.
So move.
Excellent. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Yes?
All those in favor? And yes, Clark.
Okay, another wage authorization for Barre Police Department, again, Supervisor Chief Carbone, employee name Connor Somanti, I'm going to say, part-time patrol, at part-time first year, hourly rate of $18.82 per hour. The hours per week is varied, obviously depending on necessities, I guess. Again, signed and approved by Chief Carbone and Jessica Sizer, Administrative Assistant.
Excellent.
I would move.
I'd entertain a motion.
I would move the approval.
Excellent. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Yes.
And yes, Clark. Okay, and then one more.
Yes, one more. Again, from the Barre Police Department, again, Supervisor Chief Carbone, a position for a part-time patrolman. It would be patrolman step 1 at hourly rate of $18.82. Again, hours would be varied. Authorization signature is Chief Carbone and also Jessica Size, Administrative Assistant. And I would move approval.
Okay, and then second that, and we'll call for,
So move.
hearing none,
yes,
call for a vote.
approve.
All those in favor?
Approved.
And yes, Clark.
Okay. And I believe the paperwork would be signed by the board chair when he arrives. Okay. Then we have an executive session, but public comment, it looks like there's no public at this time. I don't know if there's any public online.
Joy.
Joy?
She took
Okay, she's probably would make herself known if she had a comment. We don't have, here we just have executive session stuff to move to, and that won't be for almost another hour, but hopefully we could probably has the chair had an opportunity to review the warrant? Turn the warrant yet? Okay. Has there been information on the varied,
The planning board
yes, the
articles?
planning board articles?
Yeah,
Okay,
can we discuss
so
that?
he has had access to that.
Yes, yeah, I sent everybody on the board. So essentially, what had happened was that the planning board, and it's my understanding that in the past, the planning board typically will send a memo like this.
Exactly.
And then the follow-up information, as you both saw, was just jargon.
Right,
Like very
right.
technical
Yep.
zoning laws. And I believe the reason why we're seeing such a volume of planning board
It's the,
articles is because of a grant that they got to have somebody
Mm-hmm.
come through and look at the planning board articles and suggest some improvements. So
great.
I believe that's why we're seeing kind of an influx here to make some changes. But other than that, the warrant that I sent, that is in front of you right now, I've gone through and I've taken everything that we've received and put it into the formal town meeting language.
Mhm.
There's a little bit of revision that will need to be done, and obviously I'll have it looked over by our attorney, but
Right,
specifically Article 20, the name change of the selectmen to the select board. I copied that article language from a different town, and so where they insert the article in their town code is gonna be a different section than where we insert it, so I just have to confirm with Ellen on where we wanna insert it.
and I'm sure everyone will think this came from me, and I'm not the first woman selectman in Barre, but it came from Mr. O'Sullivan now, so everybody should talk that up.
Came from Dylan.
Oh, Dylan, it was you. Okay, they're all gonna blame me for
Yeah.
being some crazy woman's liver, but I am appreciative, as all the women in the community would be. Thank you.
And so it actually,
I'll take some blame for this if I have to, that's okay.
yeah.
I don't mind one. I was just reading a Mass Live today about the history of the name debate. In Munson, they just changed their name to the Select Board, and they were celebrating, I think, the 100th anniversary of having a
You can
woman
have this one.
Select Board member in Munson as well, which was pretty cool, so.
Yeah, yeah, I saw that article today too.
Jessica, do we have an ETA for Mr. O'Sullivan?
I think he said 6:45, 6:50, so hopefully just a couple more minutes.
I mean, what articles do you feel are absolutely perfunctory that aren't going to really merit a lot of discussion?
So Articles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, let's see, all the way through Article 12,
Mhm.
those are on every town meeting. That's just the standard, like, getting business done.
I know we can't use a consent agenda here that way, but what I would like to do is to indicate that we will review those very quickly and when hopefully get through 12. And if these are perfunctory, let's just move on and be on number 13 when Mr. O'Sullivan gets here. We do have the lawyer at 7:30, and I hate to have him waiting for us. Dylan, are you okay with just reviewing the perfunctory articles, 1 through 12?
Yes, I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Is there a copy?
I would have to go make a copy, but I can do that.
Are you gonna go through it?
Yeah, they're gonna go through it,
Oh, thank you.
word for word, but yeah.
No,
let me go
okay,
make-
thank you.
Do you have a copy of that?
I have a copy of, just the concept of the meeting, but not,
Okay.
not the articles.
I think I'm going to use Greg's and you can use mine. How's that
Oh,
sound?
no, well, then we didn't, then Jessica didn't have to run up.
Yeah, well, I didn't think of that soon enough. She's too quick.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, you good?
By the way, I sent you a couple of emails, did you get them?
Yes,
Oh, you got them?
I did. I did.
Some of them, I would guess, needed a response.
Well, I try not to get into stuff that's just not totally business.
Oh, yeah, but sometimes,
Well, we can talk about that some other
yeah,
time.
but sometimes business turns into other business, that's all. Anyway.
Looking at Article 1. Again, they're on every town meeting, so I guess.
We'll say, let's look at this. Article 1, FY 2022 Water Enterprise Fund, sponsored by the DPW Commission. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from water receipts the sum of money for the operations and maintenance of the municipal water system for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021, or take any other action relative thereto.
That is perfunctory and appears every year, so I'm good.
Every year.
Yeah.
How about we ping pong? Do you want to read Article 2?
Sure. Article 2 is FY '22 Sewer Enterprise Budget. DPW Commission are the people who submitted this to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from sewer receipts a sum of money for the operation and maintenance of the municipal sewer system for the fiscal year beginning from July 1, 2021, or take any action relative thereto. Again, every year we see it. Looks like
Do these articles need
Okay.
do these articles need a money, a dollar
no,
number?
not at this time. These are just putting the articles ready for the town meeting.
Oh, okay.
Just that will be on there with money set aside. At the town
okay.
meeting.
All right, thank you. I should know by now if you're coming to so many meetings. Huh?
Article 3?
Article 3, FY 2022 transfer from free cash, that's sponsored by our board. To see if the town will transfer from FY 20 free cash a sum of money to fund the FY 22 omnibus budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021, or take any other action relative thereto.
Okay, certainly it's always there if needed. Number 4 is my turn. Again, transfer from ambulance receipts reserved for sponsor is the fire chief. To see if the town will transfer from ambulance receipts reserved the sum of $425,000 to fund the FY 22 omnibus budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021, or take any action relative thereto. Again, always there. And the 425,000 is the number that obviously the fire chief has in reserve. Okay.
That's right. So Article 5, FY 2022 omnibus budget, that's also sponsored by our board. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a sum to pay town charges and expenses for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021. And vote to fix salary and compensation of all elected officials of the town in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 108, effective July 1, 2021, and make all appropriations for the same, or take any other action relative thereto.
I think that's probably a requirement. I get to do budget for schools to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a sum to pay school charges and expenses for fiscal year July 1, 2021, in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 108, effective July 1, 2021, and make all appropriations for the same or take any action relative thereto. That we have to do.
Excuse me, Maureen. May I say something, or I have to keep my mouth shut?
You can say, again, all we're doing is reviewing what will be on the warrant. We're not trying to talk about how much or how little. Okay.
I understand, but when we have these, no doubt somebody is going to say, what are the charges and what are the issues in that regard?
In the town, okay, when we get to the budget, these will all be funded items.
Oh, okay, all right.
I think you're up, Dylan.
Thank you.
Okay. Article 7 is Board of Assessors Property Valuations, and that's sponsored by the Board of Assessors. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum to pay for costs associated with the assessors, recertification of properties, special appraisal expenses, cyclical reinspection costs, and annual interim value adjustment, or take any other action relative thereto.
Something we obviously have to do. So I'll go to number 8. The ones that we've recommended, I would assume, we probably could pass over. What do you think, Dylan? I guess we could read them for the people who are on.
Yeah, while we're waiting, I mean, if anybody's at home listening to this, they might be at rapt attention right now. So
They
we
may-
might as well,
they may be-
might as well finish
Okay.
the first 12 while we're waiting for
Okay.
this to solve.
To see if the town will vote to transfer, I should say, the PEG Access and Cable Related Fund. This article was put on here by the Board of Selectmen. To see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $25,000 from the PEG Access and Cable Related Fund to operate the Public Educational and Governmental PEG Access and Cable Related Fund established pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53F, 3/4, for fiscal year FY 2022, or take any action thereto. Looks like a plan.
Article 9, it's about revolving funds. It's also sponsored by our Board of Selectmen. That is to see what spending limits the town will establish for revolving accounts established pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, and the town's bylaws, Chapter 48, Section 1, for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021, or take any other action relative thereto.
Again, every year it's on the town meeting warrant for the town meeting. And I'll move to snow removal OTPT account. Obviously, we always have a need to usually go back and do a little do-over with funding for snowstorms and ice. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, transfer from available funds a sum of money to the fiscal year 2021 snow removal overtime part-time account, or take any action relative thereto. We've all seen that one before. It will be on there again. Dylan, 11?
Okay, this is the FY 2021 snow removal expense account, also sponsored by DPW. That is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money to the fiscal year 2021 snow removal enterprise account, or take any other action relative thereto.
Okay. Wachusett Greenways, I think we've seen this before if you've attended a town meeting. To see if the town will vote to transfer a sum of $1,000 from FY 20 free cash for Wachusett Greenways Trail Fund, or take any action relative thereto.
Hi, Greg.
I second.
You're just in time, Mr. Chairman. We did all the perfunctory ones and are leaving all the difficult ones for you.
Oh, this
Starting on
must be
the-
horribly difficult.
Starting, these are wage approvals that would need your signature
Right.
for new hires, and the articles here.
I just need.
Oh, you gave him one, okay, so we're on Article 13, and seeking your sage advice.
So while we're on Article 13, this is the police cruiser article, and I know that last Thursday we talked about moving it to the general fund, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that just because it takes so long to order a police cruiser that we might not see that police cruiser before the end of the next fiscal year, which means that at the end of that fiscal year, all of the money that's unspent goes back into the general fund. And so we wouldn't have that account to fund the cruiser from. Like, we're still waiting, Chief,
For the
I don't know
fire
if
truck.
he's actively listening, but we are still waiting for the cruiser that we ordered last year, and we don't know if we will have it by the end of this fiscal year. So if we don't have it by the end of this fiscal year and it was within our general fund, then we wouldn't have
Yeah.
anywhere to pay for it.
Right.
So I would recommend that it stays as a separate article.
I still want it in his budget, and if it comes to the end of the year and he hasn't received it yet, then when we go to town meeting, we can vote to take the balance from that, because it's before the end of the fiscal year, when we can set up an account for it with his funds. In other words, I can say we'd like to take from FY 22 budget, 55,000, and place it into an account to buy a cruiser, and just hold it over. We can encumber it at town meeting, because it happens probably at the end of the year. I don't think we're going to have a holdup, but I still want it in the budget, because I don't want the budget to come in with all this excess cash and after you've set the tax rate. I mean, basically, I looked at this more when I got home. We level funded for 2 years. That's about $120,000 or $30,000 a year that we didn't increase budgets. There's our $250,000 excess. That's why, because we've held everyone back for 2 years. That's why it's there. So it's not a surprise. It's that funding can't get stopped after this. It's going to go back to to normal growth, but I still prefer we keep it in the police department budget, and if we need to, we can rectify it at next year's town meeting. Thoughts? We want to eventually have this in the budget annually anyways. So
It just stuns me that it takes that long to get a cruiser.
Well, especially now with this chip shortage.
Chip shortage, yeah.
it's, things will get back to normal.
Yeah, over time.
The government's still giving 300 excess funds on top of unemployment, so people are still more inclined to stay unemployed.
Well,
And
that
that's
has
coming to an end.
nothing to do with the chips though, Greg. Let's
Well,
not try to blame the $300 a month on the chips.
when people want to stay home and you can't produce things,
Well,
it's
well,
hitting every industry.
Well, you
and
and I could
everything.
probably have a relatively lengthy argument on that, and it's probably not on the agenda, so we'll pass until we're just after the meeting or something. But
Sure.
anyway, moving on.
We can't discuss it after the meeting, so we're
Well,
going to leave
well, we
it.
can, because it's nothing to do with the budget. It's nothing to do with town business.
Started here, so I wouldn't do it. But anyways, all right, so Article 13, so are we all right with leaving that in the budget?
Good.
Dylan? We'll leave it in the police budget, okay. 14, capital request for fire department admin vehicle.
That we should have had last year, right? That's the one you discussed?
Right, and now we said raise, appropriate, borrow, or transfer, okay. And once again, we,
Change that to free cash.
well, that's gonna come out of the, we wanna do that out of the budget still. The only thing we're hitting free cash for was the OPEB account.
Yeah.
And the roof, we're gonna make 59 or 58, whatever it has to be to end the budget, to balance the budget.
Okay.
And then we're gonna do, well, the other, we could go the other way. We could take the excess account, the deficiencies for the snow removal out of the budget. But I think that's really the wrong year, so you better have free cash in that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's
No.
the wrong year.
Because that's the thing with free cash in that and the OPEB, so I would say leave everything else in there. We said 60,000 on the roof, but that'll be whatever it actually adjusts to be,
Mhm.
whatever that balances the roof, so we're not mixing accounts. I think they should be sufficient at that point. We'll find out when you get your numbers in beforehand if we have to adjust it. And if we have to, we can always take some from free cash and add to that amount at the end, but. So we'd say raise and appropriate for the 55,000 for the admin vehicle, but we will put that as a separate item because we don't want to increase his budget by 55,000 a year, because it's really a once every 5-year purchase.
And we really need to get that going, because if it takes that long for cruiser, it must take that long for, this seems amazing to me. But anyway. No, I mean, these
And
are
you gotta-
very
and you gotta
important
hope these
vehicles
prices-
for communities, and if you need a year's waiting time to buy such a vehicle, I can see a fire truck, I get that, in an ambulance, but
Because they
just
build them
cruiser?
custom, yeah.
I don't
The
know.
biggest thing on these is putting in the lights and the sirens and all
That's
that
what it is.
accessory equipment.
It's not the actual vehicle,
Oh.
it's the outfitting of the
Right,
vehicle.
and the fire's probably easier. We have a basic light, we don't have the same computer systems. I mean, the
Yeah.
police cruisers have a very complicated computer
Yeah.
system and
Yeah.
on top of everything else, and we really don't in the fire apparatus. He's
No,
gotta
but they
have,
have to build thousands, hundreds of thousands of these a year for all the police cruisers across the country.
they do.
I can't believe that they're that, individual, I can't believe they can't do it more quickly, but what do I know? I'm moving on to the, where, capital request, Ruggles Lane?
Ruggles Lane is next. If the town will vote to transfer from FY20 free cash, the sum of 50,000. Once again, wasn't that coming out of the, I thought we put everything in.
It was everything, I thought that the fire department vehicle and the generator.
I was pretty sure we did everything except for the snow deficiencies, the excess to be paid, and the OPEB, I think was all.
Okay.
That's what I thought. I'll see if I can find
I'll
it.
have to look back at the video.
Yeah.
227. Right, absolutely everything. It should bring us up to the 273.66. So it's going to be the Chief Car Station 2 renovation, fire station feasibility study.
QRSD
Please.
generator.
Yep, the generator. And the roof repair, we said 60, but it's going to be minus whatever to make it fit. And that
Yeah.
should deplete, it should zero out the budget. And then we're going to have to take the 25,000 for OPEB out of free cash and balance the snow and ice account out of free cash, which should bring that down from 229 to, depending where we are on the budget there, like 60,000, like 140 or something.
Okay.
And we're going to split the balance of those two, hopefully between stabilization and create a capital purchase stabilization.
All right.
That's what we went through at the meeting anyways. As we went back down the punch list. So, going back to Article 15, would be raising an appropriate $50,000 to pay for a new generator at Ruggles Lane Elementary School, taking the election relative thereto. 16 is grant.
Chapter 90.
Just chapter 90,
Yeah.
that's just the language.
So I'm not going to read that through.
No.
We'll present this whole thing, read it all through later.
Yeah, I think Article 16, 17, 18, and 19 are all the,
Yeah.
again, for
Business,
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
and of course, Article 20,
And I didn't ask for that, no, remember that.
we know. To see if the town will vote to amend the town code and all bylaws to substitute the term Board of Selectmen throughout with the term Select Board. In the words Selectman, Selectmen, Selectwoman, or Selectwoman, with the words Select Board member or members of the Select Board. In each and every place they appear in the town bylaw, and further to insert the following in Article 1, Section 3, before the existing text thereof, the following. For the purposes of these bylaws and for all official business of the town, the board previously referred to as a Board of Selectmen shall hereinafter be referred to as the Select Board, with individual members to be referred to as Select Board members or members of the Select Board. And said Select Board shall have all the powers and duties of a Board of Selectmen as set forth in the general laws, any special act applicable to the town, or take any action relative thereto. All that fancy language to change it, but you've got to get all the little details. Now, we have.
This is the change that was asked by the moderator to get current with what,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 planning board and 3 selectmen. So we have amend to see if the town will vote to amend the code of the town of Barre by changing chapter 119, section 6 to the current edition of the town meeting and omitting by Richard B. Johnson, moderator of Swampscott, Benjamin Lincoln, a committee of the Massachusetts Moderators Association, copyright 1962, wow, by Little Brown. So we want to admit that. Changing it to add, the current edition of. So as they said, that's just getting us up to the current edition of the bylaw rules and procedures that we have.
yeah. it's not-
And it will protect us from here on out. There will never have to be another amendment to this. It just we will know that it's the current edition, whatever
Right.
edition that is.
I like the way it's phrased. 22, amend the code of the town of Barre. To see if the town will vote to amend the code of the town of Barre by changing chapter 119, section 7, to change the term of office for the moderator to 3 years, or take any action relative thereto. That seems pretty logical. It's all the other offices are 3 years. It's silly. He has to advertise and run and go through an election every 3 years. I mean, every year, pardon me. And now we have the planning boards. We didn't print out what the amendments were for us, or they're just in our,
I just
What
sent
the
them in
language?
the email because they were some of them were pretty lengthy. But
I just want to kind of go through those and get the gist of what they are here at the meeting, so, because
Yeah, I can do
there's
that.
been some chatter on Facebook, and I try not to get too involved in it. people are worried, what are they trying to change, why are they trying to change things? It's also secretive, they won't, they get in the whole thing, and they complain it's here and they can view it here, but they can't get in the building. So I just mentioned the building's open to public, so you can go look at it. But it'd be nice to go through those, at least paraphrase, to give people an idea of what each one's about.
Okay. So which one do you want to start with first?
I'm gonna start right at the beginning with
Natural
140-33, yes.
Okay. So I believe a lot of this was precipitated because the planning board received a grant that gave them access to somebody who was helping them update a lot of these zoning articles. So the natural resource protection zoning bylaw was one specifically that I know that they were focused on. And so the purpose of that bylaw is to preserve the natural resources of Barre as identified in the most recent open space and recreation plan, especially large contiguous blocks of arable land and forested black land that must be maintained as large acreage holdings in order to remain economically viable for commercial agriculture and forestry. This is necessary for the continuation of farming and forestry as significant resource-based local agricultural activities and for the protection of the town's water resources and other unique environmental assets. This section is also intended to foster compact development patterns using flexible regulations for density and lot dimensions and to promote and encourage creativity in neighborhood design. The town wishes to encourage the use of natural resource protection zoning because it results in the preservation of contiguous open space and important environmental resources while allowing design flexibility. An RPZ is intended to reduce development impacts on farmland, forests, wildlife habitats, large tracts of contiguous open space, environmentally sensitive areas, steep slopes, hilltops, and historically significant areas.
Didn't seem to really say what is changing.
That one, I don't know if that's actually changing or if that's an entire new bylaw. Yes, so that is an entire new section. So the natural resource protection zoning is an entire new part of the bylaw.
So it sounds like it wants to preserve pieces of land as they are and stop subdivision.
I don't.
That's how I took it, but that's what I'm worried about. You know, farmers farm when they can, and then it's profitable. If it's not, then the land sits and it's useless, and we're not getting any tax money from useless farmland. If it's something that's subdividable, and part of one of these that I read talked about making sure someone puts the house off to one side of a lot so you can have the whole open lot space still. That's ridiculous. I mean, if somebody who wants their house on the edge of their lot, they want
Well, I think the important thing is to understand that the planning board has recommended these be placed before the citizens. I don't think it's our job to say, with the planning board, a duly elected group, they feel that these should be placed before the town for consideration. We should not be the bottleneck here and saying, well, we don't agree with that. We're not going to put it on the warrant.
Oh, no, they're going on the warrant, don't get me wrong.
Oh, so
We, as a board, we are going to vote on each of these articles later.
Whether we
Whether we
recommend.
support or recommend or don't
Right.
recommend. So I'm trying to have a discussion, this is the point for this tonight, for us, my point. We can discuss these, have our recommendations ready, so when we do go to present the budget with the finance committee and present the warrant, we can go through these quickly and have a vote for a favorable, unfavorable on them and move through it quickly and not have to spend time debating it then. But my concern is, like, if somebody is buying a 12-acre parcel and they want to push the house back 180 feet, have a nice front yard, a large backyard, equal space on the sides, that should be their business. They shouldn't be
Well,
told,
we
no.
don't know. That's your interpretation.
That's what one of them saw, one of the things that I did read. That's why I want to kind of go through them and see what they say. But I want to make sure that's not what it's doing.
Yeah, well,
I could be,
Are we not prepared to really get substantively involved in what these mean because we really haven't had a chance to spend a lot of time reading them? I mean, I just hate to, because I think the most important thing for us to do is, if this is going to go to the town, we can have a special meeting where you and I and Dylan have the opportunity just to focus on those articles to decide whether we're going to make a favorable agreement on them. Or say we recommend this favorably, or we don't recommend it favorably.
So the next one is right here, that's what I'm talking about. Whenever feasible, retain existing old farms, woods, roads, and lanes rather than construct new roads. So they want to follow the meandering roads rather than have a straight new road. There's points to that sometimes, and other points it's better to have a straight road. It's a lot safer, there's a lot of good things about it.
Well,
But
I'd like to hear their position on it, that's all.
Preserve stone walls, hedgerows, traditional landscape features that define outdoor areas in a natural way and create corridors useful for wildlife. Use these features as property lines is often, as long as the setback requirements don't result in constructing buildings in the middle of fields. Avoid placing buildings in the middle of open fields. Place them at either edge of the field or in the wooded areas. Septic system, leach fields, and wells may be located in fields provided. So it does talk about in here, without getting either further into these, setting up how someone has to establish their house lot when they buy a piece of land.
But does it say shall, or does it say should consider? What does it say? I mean, I just hate for us to spend all this time nitpicking stuff that we don't have before us, or that we don't have the, because I would say, have the planning board explain what they mean, because otherwise, how are we supposed to make a judgment on it? Just skimming it over and then saying, well, we don't agree with that, when we really don't know what they actually said and why they think that that would be a good position for the town to take.
Yeah, there's a lot in this, and, you know, I'm not seeing the scope of what the
Changes.
what the dream is with these NRPZs. Like, if this is a special zone that is being thought of for specific areas, it doesn't sound like it's a blanket proposal for, you know, most or even a large amount of the properties in town necessarily. Yeah, there's just a lot here to judge the way we are right now in this meeting. So it would be nice to get a little bit more of a big picture view from someone from the planning board.
It does say that these shall apply to the sitting of all uses and structures that are in NRPZs or subject to special permit approval, but they're recommended but not required for the sitting of individual residences on existing lots where no special permit is required.
Well,
So I'm curious what
yeah.
says the MPZ and what it is going to apply to and why.
And I concur with you that it merits our careful consideration before we would make a recommendation one way or the other. But the
Right.
concern is to try to think that we can do this kind of in a slipshod fashion tonight, doesn't give it the weight it deserves. And another thing, I would prefer that we go to a planning board meeting and ask them to just whip through this with us.
Well, for tonight,
It has to go on the warrant. We can't keep it off the
For
warrant.
tonight, we're
anyway.
going to read them, and I'm going to make sure just have a brief description of each of these as we go, and we can take them from there. We don't have to get in depth on them. But I
Well,
want to
then-
make sure we
then-
read them what they are briefly and go on.
Okay, but we're not expected tonight to take a vote on whether we are.
No, oh, no,
Okay.
I don't, we normally take the vote when we go review the budget presented to the
Yeah.
town with the warrant. We
Okay.
take our vote then.
And we-
Sometimes we take it as late as at meeting night. We meet half an hour before the meeting and take our votes, run through it and vote on them then. But also reading them here, if it does, you know, people have had concerns about what all these sweeping changes are for, is what I've seen on Facebook. This gives people a chance to hear briefly what it's about, and they can research it more, and they can come to the meeting if they're interested. But to give some substance that's in here tonight is just gonna help the public that is listening, and people listen, review, if they wanna get further involved or
I
not.
would say to read what, I think, who just read that very long passage, was it you? If you think that anybody listening at home really can grapple with that amount of information.
Well, that's why I read the second one. I read a brief part of the second one at the beginning.
see-
I didn't go through the whole thing.
Well, I would just say, I don't think it's fair to the public. I think what would be fair is for us to attend a planning board meeting, have a joint meeting, and review this and make the public aware that we will be doing that for the public, that we will be going through these in detail, and so that they can have that detailed information before they come to town meeting. But for us to sit here and just whip through, a quick summary when we can't interpret what the information says, I don't think is fair to the public.
Noted. The next article, that was Articles 10, Section 10-33 was Article 23.
That we don't have really any idea what it means at this
And
point.
10-34 was Article 24. And Article 25 is 140-35. Do you have, I don't have anything here that I can read on that.
Yep, so, 140-34 is rural siting principles, and that is a piece of the NRPZ that we just discussed. And this article, has to deal with the, reusing the old farm, woods, roads, and lanes, preserving stone walls and hedgerows, avoid placing buildings in the middle of open fields. So this is what Mr. O'Sullivan just discussed.
So it sounds the same as the 140-34.
Yes, that's, yep, and then 140-35 is,
It says driveways, common driveways,
Yeah.
flexible
Yeah.
frontage.
I just have to.
So they're telling you where you're supposed to.
Usually, if you read the first paragraph, it should give a brief, it should pretty much say,
Yeah.
it's like the opening to a book. Here's what you got coming up before you get into the meat and potatoes. It should give us enough.
Right, I just had to switch my emails over. So the driveways, common driveways, and flexible frontage, that has to do with, the driveway shall be designed before a building permit for a newly constructed dwelling, and that every building lot shall have a vehicular driveway access from its legally required roadway frontage unless a special permit has been granted for the use of a common driveway to provide such access.
See, I thought we required driveways already, and that's supposed to be, the residence and the driveway is supposed to be established before the permit has it. Because
I
that's
think
part of what
that-
we talked about the numbering committee we established.
Right, I think the difference here is that there's a lot of properties that have common driveways.
Mhm.
Probably not a lot of properties, but there are properties that have common driveways.
I
So
believe
this-
our bylaw restricts 2 residents in a driveway.
It may, so this one would restrict it even further in saying that every building lot has to have their own driveway unless they get a special permit.
Okay, so that'll be interesting to read further into as well and see, because that would affect a lot of people in a negative way.
I would say that the length of the town meeting, when you look at the number of these articles that are going to really require a lot of sort of insight for people.
The better versed we are
Yeah. Oh.
before town meeting, the quicker we can answer
Well,
questions.
the better versed the public is, so I think we should make an
Well,
effort to work with
hopefully,
the
but-
planning board to have a meeting to really flesh this out so people would know what's going to be on the town meeting warrant, because,
Right, and they still seem to wait till the night of.
well, they may not, we can ask.
Because they don't get a lot of opportunity to come get the one-on-one question answered. But I found at the meetings, if we're not sure and passing the question back and forth, it just festers,
I agree.
in the crowd. But if you go up with the knowledge lands and you can explain it in a concise way, what they're looking for, put it in layman's terms, here's what it means, then they're satisfied with it. Well, at least with the answer, so they know where they stand on it. And that's a goal. You're not trying to win them over on it or against
No,
it. You just
I
want
agree.
them to understand it so they can make their decision. And that's what we hope to get to when we're done with it. All right, Article 26, amend the code,
Accessory
adding new
apartments.
section, accessory apartments.
So there's an existing bylaw that discusses accessory apartments, and this is just an amendment to increase the size of what qualifies as an accessory apartment from 800 square feet to 1,000. And it also requires a special permit.
Interesting. I think we have a lot of apartments that are under 1,000 square feet.
So this will go on so you say you have a house and you want to build an in-law apartment that is separate from your house. So that is what qualifies as an accessory apartment. not necessarily like a unit that's only, you know, a studio size.
Or if somebody just has a house and wants to split off a couple rooms and rent out part of it, it's gonna restrict what size they have for
It's
that.
gonna be too
It'd be interesting to see what that one reads. Yeah, sometimes they are too small. You get into them and they're really cut up and tiny. And
So,
it's
I mean,
different.
it increases the size, so it was a maximum of 800 square feet, and now it will be 1,000 square feet. So it just
I mean, minimum, yeah.
So
says,
is it a maximum or minimum?
yeah, it says a separate second dwelling unit occupying a maximum of 1,000 square feet.
Meaning it's considered accessory if it's 1,000 square feet, but if it's not,
As opposed to making it a two-family. So that
Oh,
must, so
okay,
this
that-
is probably addressing the in-law apartment, literally,
yeah.
which is different, and often there's not a kitchen in it, I think, to be an in-law. So that must be what it is, some sort of subletting. Interesting. Interesting.
Okay. That is also, I believe that is also a part of the NRPC that we talked about.
But either way, it's bumping it larger capacity, not smaller.
Yep.
Article 27, amend the code of town of Barre by adding the new section 140-37, rate of development bylaw.
Yes. The purposes of the rate of development are to promote orderly residential growth in the town of Barre, consistent with the rate of growth over the last 10 years. Phase growth so that it will not unduly strain the community's ability to plan for and provide basic public facilities and services. And, you know, I actually, hold on, let me look at this real quick. Yes, it is a new section. I almost wanted to say that it was just a revised existing section, but it is new, because it makes a lot of sense. But it says, ensure the greatest degree of fairness and equal opportunity to all in the distribution of available building permits, and allow time for the town to initiate and complete a master planning process and make associated revisions to its zoning bylaws, subdivision control regulation, and other local land use laws.
So this is a stopgap method, is this a stopgap period? Because I would say probably the least volatile time in the last decade, when we have had 2008 big recession. I mean, but the first 5 years,
Yeah, we've had very little
It was
growth.
very little growth.
And
And
that
and
makes
would
me
be very limiting.
concerned.
So
Because on our end here, that's what we're talking about is growth, especially if we had the infrastructure and could do more senior living with 50-plus communities, where you bring people in, you can have much nicer buildings. You do two families instead of huge monstrosities. So you have a neighbor with the dividing walls, a kitchen, living room, so the bedrooms are quiet and off the ends, and they're really nice, and you get a premium for those, and they'd be great for the tax base. Don't want it to be crazy, but I'd be scared to limit to the
well, I
last
mean,
10-year
that
growth.
is something that would make me say, I'm gonna learn more about that.
Yep, we'll see what the, and that's the thing, just putting that much out there, people are gonna say, okay, I wanna learn more, I don't wanna learn more, they have an idea what it's about. Interesting anyways. Where are we at here?
28?
That is just a date change.
Okay,
That
that's a
one
date,
is just a date change.
okay, from May 29
May 4th,
to 19,
2019.
okay.
And what was,
What are the significance of those dates?
right, was there a deadline for master plan or something that was never done? I mean, or what was
I think that was
supposedly
just,
done?
that was the last time that the zoning map was updated in 2019, but it was never changed in the code to reflect that it was updated. So like, you know that big map that's in my office?
Mhm.
So that's the map that they're talking about here. So the last time it was updated and reflected.
So it's, so you're reading somewhere it says map, because it says nothing here, that's what I'm saying. You're looking at it what it says.
Well, so chapter 140-4A references the map. I can make it explicit within the language of the article, but that's, within the town code, that's what it is.
Okay. Delete May 4th. Interesting.
Excuse me. I've been sitting here, I've been raising my hand, nobody's been noticing. May I say something, or am I not allowed as a citizen?
This is the chair.
If it's relevant, I'll give you a second or two here, but we're just trying to get through this to announce it.
Well, it's relevant, or else I wouldn't be saying it. It doesn't, people look at the selectmen as a guide. You know, what are the selectmen doing? Are they approving, are they declining? Do they understand this, do they don't understand this? The selectmen at this point don't get the gist of what the planning board has been doing. I've gone to the planning board meetings. I'm not a member of the planning board, I just go there to educate myself. There was a gentleman by the name of Lacy, he was originally hired some time ago by way of a grant to help many towns. He helped Barre for a while, and then for some reason the funding went away. And then a couple of years passed, and this same person, Lacy, who's been working on this concept for towns like Shutesbury and towns, surrounding towns, he appears to be pretty recognized in his field of planning. He was able to negotiate some sort of a grant with the help of Barre and other towns to try to bring this new concept of living called NRPZ. Now, clearly, it doesn't appear that the selectmen, the people who are guided, who guide the citizens, know anything about NRPZ other than what they might read on the computer, because there has been no connectivity between the selectmen and the planning boards. Now, you appear at this point not to know much about it. You're gonna go to the town meeting and you're gonna make a decision.
I don't think we said that. I think I have freely acknowledged, Sam, please don't make things up here. I have freely acknowledged that the lack of information that we have about this, okay, is a problem, and that we need to reach out to the planning board and spend time so that we do the citizens' business.
Yes.
Please don't, infer that we're passing this over and just saying. well,
No, but it seems as though, Maureen, come from one voice, and Greg O'Sullivan comes from another voice.
Well, I'm brand new, he's
Yeah.
got
Right.
years.
Sam, I'm going to cut you off here.
So
This is no longer being productive to what we're trying to
There has
accomplish
to
here.
be
Sam,
more
Sam,
continuity.
please.
What are you gonna do, hang
The-
up on me, like you've done before?
I'll have you removed if I have to. Stop it. Just
Would you like to do that?
behave. Just behave.
Would you like to do that, Greg?
So as we said, I'm reading through these tonight so we can have a brief understanding of what they are. As Maureen has suggested, we'll read through these so that when we do come to present the warrant in the budget, we'll have a recommendation on how we feel about each of these articles. And in the meantime, I'm sure, communicate with the planning board as well if we need any further questions answered about it. But as we've read them, they are warrant articles. They will be on the warrant. Someone noted on Facebook they thought I was trying to restrict these from being on the warrant. I know I did question whether or not we even had to put them on. It's not that we would really ever take something off from another department. It's just ridiculous. We'd always put them on. So the next article here, 29, is the one that we covered in our meeting about rezoning a piece to R15 general residence where it's been, I think,
Limited business.
limited business, right, it was limited business. And that sounded reasonable to us, and somebody's exactly looking to put a home on where the lot size is smaller and resident and the limited business is larger and he can't utilize it. And apparently years ago, before it was switched to limited business, it was 2 lots. It would have been dividable, but. So that one we've already discussed here. And the last, of course, capital request, Old Town Hall roof replacement needs to be changed from free cash to raise and appropriate.
Yep.
And that number's gonna be, roughly 60, but it's gonna be slightly less, depending how the deficit comes in the,
Right.
well, pardon me, I'm saying that wrong. Depending what we burn up in all the other articles with the total, it's probably gonna be about $2,500 less, so it'd be like 57,250 or something
Yeah.
in the neighborhood, who knows? And if you find out that people give you an idea on the roof and they expect it to be different than that number, then we can add free cash to that, before we pass this off to the public or as we pass it off. All right?
Yeah, well, certainly as we wrap that up, I certainly would indicate that it's my intention to have an opportunity to work with the planning board so that I can have a better understanding of the information that's been presented to us and so forth.
Right, it's, you know, as we've talked about before, and I'll say this publicly, given Sam's concerns about it, the planning board is another board, which is an elected board by the town of Barre. We have no say, control, or business in what they do, other than how it affects the town in exactly situations like this. We could say, yes, we haven't gone to ask them what they're doing. They also haven't made any attempt to tell us, hey, we're planning on some zoning changes, so be looking for those in the warrant. It would have been nice. They know they had something planned. We didn't know they had something planned. Just as they probably don't come to our meetings and follow our end of the business, we don't try to do their end of the business. And I've said many times before, I think the select board attending and trying to participate in planning board meetings is meddlesome. And I don't think it's helpful when we attend them, and I don't think it's helpful if we go there on a regular basis. And it's.
I don't intend to go there on a regular
Oh,
basis.
no, I'm not, in no way suggesting, I'm just saying for myself why I don't. I feel that it's meddlesome. The couple I went to in the beginning, when I was first on, everybody was asking me questions because I'm a selectman now, a select board member. I'd only been to a couple of those meetings. I was trying to see what was going on. We were trying to work on marijuana bylaws, and it became very apparent that they didn't want the selectmen's input at those meetings. They weren't listening to anything we had to say about it. And being, 4 or 5 months into it, people asking me questions like I had some answer. I was brand new. I felt I was disruptive to the meeting. I felt it was disrespectful for the board for me to be there. And I try not to be there. And I would expect if there's things coming down the chute that they want us to be aware of, they'd let us know. And I think if they wanted us to be aware of these ahead of time, they'd have told us.
Well,
So we'll have questions.
yeah,
I'm sure they'll answer them.
I think if we have an obligation or a responsibility to make a recommendation on town meeting floor,
We
whether
do.
we're in favor or not of a particular article that they are putting on, I have an obligation to understand it from the planning board's perspective.
Because I'll guarantee if we stood up at town meeting and Dylan and I said favorable and you said unfavorable, or vice versa, people would say, Dr. Marshall, why are you opposing them on it? And then you need to have an answer.
Well, trust me.
And
I would have
you've
to-
got it, well, and as well I, that's why I want to discuss it.
Well,
Before I want to make my recommendation, I have to be prepared to give the rationale as to why that's how I feel. Right, wrong, or ugly, it's going to be based on
Right.
facts and my opinion of those facts, is all I can express to people.
was-
Yeah.
Obviously, you and I have some work to do.
We do. Shooting from the hip, I'm probably going to support most of them, not all of them. That's my opinion.
Well, I would say
I-
shooting from the hip,
But we don't
okay,
know.
wouldn't be the best way to approach it.
No, I'm just saying if I had to render a guess, I'm probably going to support most of the things, and they've probably done it for good reason, and it'd just be nice to understand that reason before meetings, so people ask questions. We're the ones up front with the microphone that can answer those questions. I'm sure though when these are presented, Doug Martin will be up
Yeah,
there.
I'm
and
sure you will too.
he can answer those questions. But undoubtedly, people usually want to ask us at some point, what do you think about it and why? So we'll be prepared when it comes to that.
God willing.
All right. And you have done the appointments, you said?
We
I
have.
just need to sign them?
Yes, you just need to sign them.
So we're ready for executive session?
We are indeed.
I would look for the motion, or I could state it either way.
Move that the board go into executive session for the purposes of talking about collective bargaining, and expect that we would not come out of, we would come out only to adjourn. We would come
Correct,
out
yes.
probably in
Doesn't
45
matter.
minutes.
Doesn't matter when, it'll come out only to adjourn is
Only to
is-
adjourn.
is
Well,
sufficient.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm glad that you, the
Dylan, do you have a
discussion
second?
Came out that way that
You have a
people
second on
look
that
at you
motion?
Well,
for
there's
guidance.
also a part B,
unless
which
you
is
Understand what
non-union.
it is, how can you?
Negotiation as well.
So, thank you.
All right, so if you'd like to restate, I'd listen to
Thank you very
entertain
much.
a different.
Yeah, I'll second the motion with an amendment to add, in addition, we will also be conducting strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel. And that all falls under Mass General Law Chapter 30A, Section 21A.
I certainly accept a friendly amendment.
So I have motion and a second to enter executive session for these two topics, exiting only to adjourn. Any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none, I'll call for vote. By roll call, please.
Marshall, yes?
Clark, yes.
No Sullivan, yes. Jessica, please.